A very good evening to all of you. Welcome to Azra Academic Webinars. This is Dr. Mamta Illandula. I'm working as an in-charge physiotherapist here. Here, I'm going to present a topic on exercise, the power of exercise, a prescription for the better health. I'm going to start up with my presentation. So here is my topic, the power of exercise, a prescription for the better health. So this is a quote from Nelson Mandela. Exercise is a key not only to the physical health, but to the peace of mind. Yes or no? How many of you agree with me? Yes, when it comes to introduction, what I'm going to cover in this exercise. So first of all, why exercise is essential for health? How does it affect the human body? And the physiology of the body, everything we are going to cover in this topic. And a brief overview of the benefits of the exercise, highlighting the role of exercise in disease prevention and management. How are we going to prevent the disease, and how are we going to benefit from the exercises, and the importance of exercise in healthcare professionals, and discussing the importance of healthcare professionals in promoting physical activity, emphasize the need for evidence-based exercise prescription. So this is what the introduction, that what we are going to cover in this topic. When it comes to statistics, physical inactivity is leading a risk factor for chronic diseases. Yes or no? So according to the WHO, it recommends, World Health Organization recommends 150 to 300 minutes of the moderate intensity exercise per week. So according to the WHO, per week, an individual needs to do at least 150 to 300 minutes of the moderate intensity activity. So when it comes to global, you can see the statistics here. Around 27.5% of the people worldwide are insufficiently active. And when it comes to India, there are 71% of the Indian adults do not meet the recommended levels of the physical activity according to the WHO. So that means very less people, they are doing a physical activity in their day-to-day life in routine. What is the science behind the exercise? So we are going to discuss the benefits. So the first is the physiological, and then psychological, and the functional benefits. So first, what are the physiological benefits with the exercise? So when it comes to physiological benefits, mainly it improves the cardiovascular health and increase the muscular strength and endurance, and enhance the bone health and boosting the immune system of our body, and it reduces the stress and anxiety and everything. These are the physiological benefits. I'm going to deep into this. Let me have a brief introduction about the benefits of this exercise. When it comes to psychological benefits, it improves the mood and cognitive function, and reduce the risk of the depression and anxiety, and enhance the self-esteem and body image. Then third one is the functional benefits. In functional benefits, what happened? It enhances the body mobility, balance, and independence. End of the day, every individual needs to be independent into their day-to-day activities. So these are the benefits that we are going to get benefit from the exercise. So first, we go with the physiological benefits. The first and foremost thing is it strengthens the heart and lungs. So when an individual performs a regular aerobic activity, it improves the cardiovascular health and reducing the risk of the heart attacks and strokes. What happens when you perform an exercise? The muscle will contract, then there will be a blood flow increases to that part. So by doing the exercise, we are actually strengthening our muscles, and we are indirectly strengthening our cardiovascular organs. So when it comes to build and maintain the muscle mass, strength training prevents the muscle loss, that's the sarcopenia, and supports the bone density, lowering the osteoporosis risk. So when we do continuous, or else when we maintain the physical activity, it helps in strengthening of our body, and it also helps in increasing our bone density and lowering the osteoporosis risk. So nowadays, there are more people in younger age only, they are getting landed up in the osteoporosis. As all of you know what is osteoporosis, there is a decrease in bone mineral density. So when you are having a sedentary lifestyle, you will be more prone for these kind of risks in your later life. Then again comes with a boost immunity. Exercise improves the circulation and helping the immune cells detect and fight illness more effectively. and it enhances the flexibility and mobility by doing the stretching, balance, and strengthening exercises. And comes to mental and emotional benefits. So first is it reduces the stress and anxiety. How does it reduce the stress and activity? When an individual perform the physical activity, so what is the stress hormone over here? Cortisol. Yes or no? So when an individual perform the physical activity, it lowers the cortisol levels. So this is what happened when people performing their physical activity. So this is a stress hormone that we call it as cortisol. So it indirectly shown the effect in the cortisol level. That means when it lowers the cortisol levels, indirectly we are reducing the stress and the anxiety, and it also improves the mood. So how it improves the mood? When an individual perform a physical activity, it triggers the release of the neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. These are the neurotransmitters. So these actually neurotransmitter, it helps in mood regulation especially. So it helps in improving the mood and also in the cognitive function also. And it improves the cognitive function. What happens in cognitive function, as we all know, it enhances the memory, focus, overall brain health by increasing the blood flow to the brain. So everybody knows our brain is consistent of a gray matter and white matter. When an individual performs a physical activity, what happens? There is an increase in the gray matter. It actually helps in improving the brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So this is a growth factor. It helps in improving the brain function and also helps in improving the memory and problem-solving skills. So thus, it helps in improving the cognitive function and boosts the confidence. So when an individual performs an exercise, so actually exercise is investment in a mind, body, soul. So when an individual performs a physical activity, it indirectly helps them to increase their confidence level when it comes to, and it also helps in improving the sleep also. So these are the mental, emotional benefits. So here is an article, Mahendru, this was a recent article in 2023. Here he has shown the role of physical activity on a mental health and well-being. This is a review article. So what happens in this article, so what he has studied, the physical activity, it improves the functioning of the HPA axis. As you all can see, the HPA axis, this is hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So from where the cortisol hormone will get released. So what happens when it improves the functioning of the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, it indirectly helps in reduction of the cortisol levels, thus helps in restoration of the balance and leptin and ghrelin. These are the two hormones, these are the hunger hormones. Okay, so again, when we perform a regular exercise, they releases, our brain releases endogenous opioid peptides. So these are the mood suppressant, regulants. Okay, so by releasing of the endorphin from the pituitary gland, it indirectly decreases our anxiety and also depression. So this is in a review article. And comes to chronic disease prevention. How does the exercise helps in preventing the chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes and hypertension and obesity? When it comes to type 2 diabetes, what happens when an individual performs a physical activity, it improves the insulin sensitivity. And the hypertension by lowering the blood pressure, and when it comes to obesity, through the calorie expenditure and metabolic regulation, thus it helps in preventing the chronic diseases. So first comes to the type 2 diabetes. As everybody knows, in order to perform a physical activity, we need a cardiac and the vascular and muscle. So there will be integration of these systems are important. If there is any impairment of these three systems, if like a cardiac dysfunction, it indirectly there will be a systolic dysfunction, diastolic, and furtherly affects the decreased functional exercise capacity. When it comes to the muscle dysfunction, again the insulin action, oxygen delivery, and oxygen utilization, there will be defect in this process, again indirectly decreasing the functional exercise capacity. Again, when it comes to vascular stiffness, flow mediated dilation, and again the same thing. So end of the day, the type 2 diabetes, If there is an impairment of these integration of these three systems, it improves the cardiovascular disorders and also all-cause mortality. The mortality level will increase. So if an individual performs the exercises regularly, we can reduce the mortality rate and the cardiovascular disease up to 40%. And as everybody knows, how are we going to, for example, if a person with a cardiac rehabilitation, we are going to prescribe exercises in a meds. Everybody knows the meds is a metabolic equivalent. That means the amount of the oxygen consumed in a minute. That we call it as med. So these are the common activities that we can see over here, and how many meds they are going to spend on that each and every activity. So this is the article evidence-based. So when it goes for the slow walking, the 3 km per hour, 3 meds are going to, you are going to expend the 3 meds. And walking upstairs, 4.7, brisk walking, that is 6 kilometers per hour and 5.4 meds. When you go for the bicycling, that is 20 kilometers per hour and 7. When you increasing the speed of the activity, if you can see the number of the meds that you are expending on your body is more. Again, running 8 kilometers per hour and you can see 8.2 meds. And the hockey and boxing, these are sports. When it comes to these, you are having a high calorie expenditure, that is 12.9 and 13.4. So these are the common activities where how many meds are you going to use in these activities. So this is bout, pre-bout and post-bout. So bout, that means when you are performing a moderate and vigorous physical activity. What happens when you perform a physical activity? There is increase in muscle glucose uptake. When a muscle gets contracted, right? When you perform a physical activity, the muscle undergoes a contraction, and it utilizes the glucose, and it increases the glucose uptake by that muscle. So that indirectly decreases the plasma glucose, and it helps in again improving the decreasing insulin sensitivity. Yes or no? And it improves the counter-regulatory hormones. This is for the moderate physical activity, and the same comes with the vigorous physical activity. Again, it increases the counter-regulatory hormones, and it also increases the skeletal muscle glucose uptake, thus decreases the plasma glucose. So already the glucose which is there present in the blood, that has been utilized by the body, by the muscle, thus helps in reducing the plasma glucose, and indirectly reduces the insulin sensitivity. How does the glucose will take place for the body and for other physiology of the system? Again, there will be a process, glycogenolysis in the muscle, and glycogenolysis and the gluconeogenesis. So these are the two things where there will be resynthesis of the glucose in the muscle and the body, in the tissue. Again, it helps in increasing the plasma glucose in the bout, moderate and vigorous physical activity. So hence we are going to achieve the glucose homeostasis. So the glucose homeostasis will remain in the body, and it lasts up to 48 hours in our body. So when it goes to for the post-bout, again the same thing, the moderate physical activity and the vigorous physical activity, it increases the glucose uptake proportional to the glycogen store depletion during the bout. Again, through the glycogenogenesis process, the glucose resynthesis of the glucose will occur in the body. Again, there will be decrease in the plasma glucose. So this is about the glucose homeostasis. How are we going? How does it help in decreasing the insulin sensitivity? And comes to barriers to exercise in diabetes, there are certain barriers when it relates to physical, pathophysiological, diabetes complication-related disorders, and social and psychological. When it comes for the physical, there will be overall, the people who are less fitness, people who are lethargic, or people who are having more weight, they can't perform more of physical activities. When it comes to pathophysiological, there's a decreased cardiorespiratory fitness and the pulmonary capillary bed pressure. There are certain pathological factors. Then comes to diabetes, you can see the cardiovascular. If there is increased stress, it leads to cardiovascular event. And when there is a nephropathy, anemic patients, there is a decreased oxygen perfusion. Again, there will be a barrier for them to perform the exercise. And neuropathy, they'll be having a pain and the loss of balance. And retinopathy, loss of vision, everybody knows. And foot disease, there will be need for the special footwear. People who are having a diabetic foot, they can't work with a normal foot. There will be a specialized foot, a recommended foot for them. And again, social and psychological factors with the depression, like a diabetes disease, and decrease in socio-economic status, these are the some factors that those are the barriers to exercise in diabetes. And comes exercise as a medicine, yes or no? So rehabilitation. Exercise is a cornerstone of the physiotherapy. It helps in the recovery of the mobility, strength, and function after injuries or surgeries. When it comes to the disease management, for example, arthritis. So in arthritis, what are we going to do? So arthritis, there is inflammation in the joint. So what happens? There will be increase in the stiffness. So when we perform an exercise, when we perform a physical activity, it helps in improving the joint flexibility and it also reduces the stiffness. When it comes to cardiac rehab, again, we are restoring the heart function through the monitored activity. So for the cardiac rehabilitation, we need to have a telemetry setup. So when a individual performing exercise, we need to monitor their ECGs and everything, how much ever the oxygen they're spent, how much ever the oxygen they're using, everything we are going to monitor in this. And when it comes to cancer, so the cancer people, they will be undergoing the chemo sessions, right? So how does the exercise helps in affecting the cancer patients? So they will be more fatigued, they will be more weak. So in these patients, the exercise will help in managing their fatigue by improving the strength of the muscles and improves their recovery. And there is one more quote: those who think they have no time for exercise will sooner or later have to find time for illness. Yes or no? So Edward Stanley, he has given a quote: people who says I don't have time to perform exercise, they will be landing up in an illness in later days. So next comes types of exercise and their specific benefits. So we are having a certain types of exercise. Here I have mentioned there are aerobic exercise, strength training, flexibility and stretching, and the balance and coordinate. So aerobic activities like, what happens in the aerobic exercise, it improves the heart and lung capacity that aids in weight management. So examples of the aerobic exercise like walking, jogging, cycling, and swimming. These are all the aerobic activities, aerobic exercises. When it comes to strength training, so again, we are going to strengthen the muscles in this strength training. So the types of this exercise are weightlifting. Through the weights, we can go for the strength training, or with our own body weight, we can go for the strengthening exercises and a resistant bands. This also helps in strengthening of our body and muscles. And comes to flexibility and stretching. So this flexibility and stretching, it enhances the range of motion and it reduces the muscle tension. Yes or no? So people who are having the sedentary lifestyle, they will be having flexibility issues. They won't be more flexible than they has to be. Okay. So in this flexibility, where they have to undergo the stretching kind of exercises, or else Pilates. This is a transform body exercise. This is advanced exercise, and the yoga and the stretches in order to improve their flexibility. And comes to balance and coordination. So how are we going to achieve balance? We go with the balance training, that standing on one leg, and with the balance board, we can go with the balance training. And again, Tai Chi, it is also kind of coordination in the balance exercise. And again, coordination, finger to nose. There are certain coordination exercises that we perform in, especially people who are having a lack of coordination, especially in the older patients. They will be suffering with the balance and coordination issues. Then comes for the guidelines for the safe and effective exercise. So exercise is a thing, there has to be a supervision and there has to be proper guidance in order to prevent any injury, especially people who are going to start up. So that means whenever you are starting up an exercise, you have to start slowly and gradually you have to increase the intensity and the frequency, everything. Okay, and listen to your body. Avoid over exertion. So there are some people, if they perform, people who are having respiratory issues, they'll be feeling the shortness of breath with a minimal amount of the activity also. So whenever you're feeling over exertion, where you have to stop, if you feel any kind of pain or anything, you have to stop the exercise. It's not like you cannot continue the activity. If you continue the activity, again you will land it up in an injury, everything. Okay, and personalization is the key. Tailor routines based on the age, fitness level, and health status. So where you have to maintain your notebook or anything, that what are the exercises you are performing in a week, how much of the duration you are going to cover in that, you can have a note on your exercise part. Then follow the 150-minute rule. So as I have already mentioned, according to the WHO, so 150 to 300 minutes per week. So you should aim at least 150 to 150 minutes. That is a moderate aerobic activity per week, as recommended by the World Health Organization. Again, before starting up the exercise, where you have to do the warm up, and after the exercise, you have to go for the cool down. So this warm up and cool down helps in preventing the injuries of your body. And comes to overcoming the barriers to exercise. So these are the commonest challenges where people say the lack of time and the motivation. Some people will be postponing their exercise thing. So one day they will go for the exercise, and the next day they'll be having the pain. They'll stuck up there. So until and unless pain comes down, they don't go for the exercise. Okay, so you need to have a motivation and access to the facilities. People who are having a chronic fear of injury. So one day you went for an exercise, you are having a pain, and you had that fear. If I go for the exercise again, the pain will increase. So for that thing, where you have to balance, and where you have to overcome, and you have to consult a doctor, or you have to consult a physiotherapist for that, to get a proper guidance in order to perform an exercise. Then comes the solution: integrate activity into daily routines. So take stairs, walk to work, or do house chores actively. So where you set up your small and achievable goals, like simple thing, performing a 10 minute or 15 minutes exercise, and you increasing the intensity day by day, where you can achieve your goal, and seek professional guidance from the physiotherapists or the trainers. Because if you don't have a proper guidance in order to perform an exercise, you will end up in an injury. So the role of physiotherapist in exercise promotion. See, as a physiotherapist, our role is to assess the individual needs and limitation. So first and priormost, where we have to assess the individual, we have to take the assessment of an individual, and where the patient is lagging, where the individual is lagging, where the client is lagging, we have to make a note. And according to their needs, we have to plan a design safe and effective exercise plans, and educate the patients on the importance of the consistency, and provide the motivation and the track. So this is a role that we are going to perform in exercise promotion. Then comes to the role of physiotherapist. As I already told you, assessment, identify the patient-specific needs and limitations, and prescription depends on the assessment, where you are going to prescribe the personal exercise plans to the individual. Again, you are going to educate regarding your treatment plan, and you are going to train a safe and effective techniques in order to perform their activity or the treatment following injury. And comes to rehabilitation, where you are going to perform and you are going to guide and plan a exercise regimen for them for their recovery. Then comes to an assessment. How are we going to assess an individual? So people think that only the ill people, that means people who had any fracture, or people who are having any paralysis patients, like who are having a cardiac and pulmonary, they go for the exercise, not we. So every individual is okay. We are normal. We don't need to go for exercise for those. So for a normal individual, how are we going to take an assessment? So first is a BCA, that is a body composition analysis. So with the body composition analysis, we'll come to know our values, our muscle mass, our body weight, our body fat, and your body water, and your bone density, and your physical rating, and your visceral fat. So by these things, by these values, you'll come to know where your body is. Okay, whether you are obese or over fat, or you are healthy, or where your physical rating is up to the mark, where you are having a thin body frame or moderate body frame, everything. When it comes to your bone weight, whether you're having a good bone weight or not, and your visceral fat, where you are lagging. So this will help in guiding a proper diet. So the body composition analysis is important for each and every individual, in order to plan a proper diet and get a good dietary recommendation from the nutritionist. Then comes the girth measurements. So this girth measurement will be taken by the inch tape. So people will have a doubt. You people are not telling us like why you go for the girth measurement. So some people are very enthusiastic. Some people are very this thing. Even when you perform an activity, we'll be seeing the inch loss. Okay, when you go for the VLCC or anything, so you will people will be more specific about the inch loss. So when we take in a girth measurement of your neck, comes to your shoulders, mid-arm, everything, and your thigh, your waist level, upper abdomen, lower abdomen, so you will come to know after 15 days or 1 month of your physical activity, again we repeat assessment, you will come to know. So how far your exercise has helped in decreasing your overweight or anything. So in that way, this girth measurement, it helps you a lot. And again, in some people who are having a muscle wasting, in those patients also, so with the performance exercise and physical activity, after 1 month of assessment, again you can go for the girth measure. There will be increase in the tone in their girth. Okay, so in this way, this will help you. Then we have to check for the physical strength. So how are we going to check an individual physical strength? By performing the following test. So first is the upper body strength, the lower body strength, flexibility, core strength, cardiac endurance, and balance. So these are the physical strength. Test includes all these. Okay. Then again we'll be having a remarks and recommendation. By taking all these values, you have to write in a prescription where the individual is lagging. Whether the upper body strength is low, the lower body strength is low, or flexibility is poor, or core strength is not adequate, or where the individual's cardiac endurance is poor and balanced. So where you have to give the remarks and you have to recommend. Okay, this will help in improving their performance by taking this assessment into the consideration. It also helps for the trainers where they can concentrate. Then comes for the upper body strength. So in order to check for the upper body strength, we ask the individual to perform push-up. So you guys can see the image. This is a complete push-up. And there are some people, they will be having a knee pains and they can't perform the complete push-up, or females, most of the where they'll be having a tummy, they'll go for the modified push-ups. So these are the values. You can see the table over here. These are the values. These are evidence-based values. You can see for men and women, these are the different values. And depends on the age group, we are going to categorize and we are going to grade the client. So whether the patient, whether the client is in need of needs improvement, whether he's performing fair or good, very good or excellent. So this way we are going to address, or we are going to tell the where the patient, where the client is marking like that. So where we can go for the push-up for the upper body strength. Then comes to the lower body strength, where an individual to perform the squatting. So by performing the squatting, we have to put a stopwatch. We have to see the time. In a 1 minute of time, how many squats he's performing. Even for the upper body push-up also is the same thing. We have to set up the time in a stopwatch that is for 1 minute. So in 1 minute time, how many push-ups the client is performing and how many squats the client is performing, we have to count. So again, coming to the age consideration and gender consideration, we have to grade the client. Then flexibility and balance. So we'll be having sit and reach test, or else we'll keep a scale between their medial malleolus by marking the scale at the 15, and we'll ask the patient to touch in a three times. So we'll take the best of the 3, and that is where we are going to check the flexibility of an individual. Then again comes to the balance. So where we ask the individual to stand on one leg with eyes closed. And the client has to stand for 1 minute. If the client is able to stand for 1 minute, that is 60 seconds, that means his balance is good. Where we have to repeat the test for the both legs. First, we ask the patient to stand on right leg. Then we ask the patient to stand on the left leg. Then again, same thing. Some people they can't go for the single leg standing, where we ask the client to stand in a tandem walk position with the eyes closed or with the arms crossed. Also, we can guide the client to stand. Again, he has to stand for 1 minute. Again, you can see the rating over here, male and female. So you can see where the client is lagging up, whether he's a poor or fair, average, good or excellent. Even for the flexibility also, we will be having a ranking over here. Okay. Then comes the core strength. How are we going to check the core strength? So for this core strength, we need to have a digital sphygmomanometer, where we will keep the cuff under his tummy. We ask the client to lie down on his tummy. You keep the cuff under his tummy and you inflate the cuff. Okay. After you inflating the cuff, you ask the client to tuck in his tummy. So when you go for the tuck in, you can have the needle. You will be having a needle, right? It will be overshooting and undershooting. If the needle is going up, that means in place. If the needle is going down, that means it is minus. Okay. So where you have to rate a ranking. So if the needle is going five lines, that means it is a +5, or else +10 or +20. If it is coming down, -5, -10 or -20. If it is coming down, that means if it is in a minus, your core strength is well and good, excellent. If it is in the place, that means you are having a very poor core strength. And cardiac endurance. For this cardiac endurance, where we have to perform a treadmill test. In this treadmill test, where we have to follow the Bruce protocol. So everybody knows Bruce protocol. It's a 9-minute walk test. For every 3 minutes, the inclination will increase. So the inclination and gradient will increase automatically. So in order to perform the cardiac endurance, in order to perform the test, where we have to take the pre-vitals, the BP and the saturation and the heart rate, where we have to take, and even after the completion of the test, after 5 minutes, after 10 minutes, where we have to take the vitals. So in order to perform the cardiac endurance, we have to take the target heart rate of the client. Suppose, how are we going to calculate the target heart rate? Everybody knows 220 minus age. So we'll get that thing, and by getting the value, where you have to take the 85% of the heart rate. So that is your target heart rate. So whenever the client is performing the treadmill walking, if he is reaching the target heart rate within 9 minutes, that means his cardiac endurance is poor. That means, or else whether he is having an average cardiac endurance. So depends on the minutes, how many minutes he is performing, or else how many minutes he is able to sustain his activity. So in this way, we are going to check the cardiac endurance. So this is about the assessment, where we are going to take an individual's assessment by checking all the physical strength. So after taking all the values, as I already mentioned, you have to write a remark, whether the patient upper body strength is poor or average or anything, and you have to recommend where the patient is lagging, where the client is lagging. Then comes to tailored exercise. The key principles, whenever a client is performing exercise, you have to follow the FIT principle. That is frequency, intensity, and time and type of exercise that you are going to advise the patient. So this is very much important in order to advise a guided patient to an exercise regimen and everything. Okay. Then comes a gradual progression for a long-term adherence. As I already mentioned, whenever you are starting an exercise, where you have to start very slow, and once when you got habituated to that exercises, where you have to increase your intensity and the frequency and the duration of the exercise, where you have to increase later. It depends on your progression. Then customizing for conditions. So you people can say a person with a heavy weight, where she is having the osteoarthritis, there is degeneration of the joint. So we cannot guide. Every individual is different. Every patient is different. Every client is different. So we have to take the consideration. We have to assess the client properly, and we have to perform. See, if a patient is heavy, if I ask them to go for the vigorous intensity exercise, they can't perform because the weight itself is a barrier for them to performing exercise. So in those patients, in those clients, where you have to go for the low impact exercise, that is swimming and cycling. So as you know, in the water, if you perform an aquatic therapy, we can say, so inside the water, you won't feel the body weight. So it will be easy for them to do the exercises for a longer period of time, and it helps in reducing their stress on the knees, and helps in improving the strength of the knees. Then comes to diabetic. As I told you, according to the American Diabetic Association, aerobic and resistance training. So if an individual performs aerobic training 3 sessions per week, and the resistance training, he should undergo at least 2 sessions per week. Okay, so we, as I told you, depends on the patient's needs. We have to guide the exercise regimen. We have to write the exercise regimen, plan the exercise regimen for them. When it comes to cardiac rehab, where you have to plan the supervised program with a gradual intensity. So these are tailored exercise. And comes to evidence-based articles. So these are the articles where the others have shown, they have done certain studies. So I'm not going to deep in this. So let me just have tell the gist of the story of this article. So Ward Burton et al., he has done a study, the systematic rule, and he has analyzed 20 cohort studies to assess the relationship between the physical activity and incidence of the type 2 diabetes. So what he understood by doing this study, there is an inversely proportional between the physical activity and incidence of the type 2 diabetes. So if you increase the physical activity, there is a reducing the incidence of the type 2 diabetes. Yes or no? Okay. So in all the studies, he observed there is a there is a markable reduced risk of the 42% in developing the type 2 diabetes. So again, same thing, a recent review of the 15 studies. Again, this is the article regarding the blood pressure. What happened when you perform the exercises? There is increasing the blood flow to the body. There will be improving the strength of your heart and lungs. So thus helps in decreasing the blood pressure. So in approximately 75% of the population with average reductions of the 11 mmHg in systolic BP and 8 mmHg in diastolic BP. And the evidence says that women may experience a greater BP reduction than men in most of the studies, and younger people get more benefited than the older people. Then comes to article number 3. This is also what is the role of exercise on mental health and well-being. As I already told you, when you perform in a physical activity, what happens? There will be a reduction in the cortisol level. It reduces the stress. And also there will be release of the endorphins and neurotransmitters. It helps in change. These are the natural mood boosters. So this helps in improving your mood and also improves the cognitive function. And it also improves the memory and behavioral problem solving skills. It improves the quality of the life. And there is a study, people who are having Alzheimer's disease. So with the performance of the physical activity, where you can improve the cognitive behavioral function of the patient in this study especially. So this is about the exercise and how are we going to plan an exercise regimen for the patient. What are the guidelines you are going to follow? How are we going to assess? What are the tailored exercise program? Everything have covered. So these are the structuring exercises for the healthcare professionals. Everybody knows as a day-to-day busy life, people who work in front of the system, they will be stuck to the system. They will be sitting in a chair for a longer period of time. They will be landing up in their neck pain, back pain, any pains. Okay. So for those people, by sitting on the chair, by spending the day, people say that I don't have time to do the exercises. So for them, they can perform these stretches by sitting in the same place. So this helps in reducing their pain. So these are certain stretches where you can go with the side stretch, and again where you can go with the side stretch. So you can see the pictures over here. These are the stretches that helps in reducing the neck pain, rather than suffering with the neck pain, where you can go for the self stretches on your own. Then comes to the arms. People who performs upper body strengthening, they'll be having the more of arm pains, where they can go with the cross arm stretch and the pectoral stretch, and they can go with the triceps, and where they can stretch both of their arms and bend sideways. So these are the basic stretches for the arms. Then comes for the legs. As I already told you, people who sit for the prolonged period of time, they will be developing tightness of the hamstrings especially, and the calf also. So what happened when you are sitting for a longer period of time, so the muscles adapt to that position. the fascia gets tightened in that muscle. So they will be having, so if your hamstring get tightened, if your calf get tightened, again, it indirectly does impact on the low back only. So people think every low back pain is not a cause of disc pain. Okay, people says you're getting the low back pain, your disc is causing the problem. No. So there are some structures. There is a muscle. There might be a muscle problem. There might be a disc problem. There might be a nerve issue. There might be a tendon. Any structure can involve. So if your muscles are strong, if your muscles are tight, what happens? You won't be having the flexibility. You won't be perform your regular activities. There will be limitation of the activity. So if you perform as stretches, if you perform as exercises and stretches for that muscle, definitely it helps in improving the range of motion. It helps in improving your flexibility. So these are the commonest stretches where you can go. These are the adductor stretch, where a person can stand in front of the stretch system at the edge of the table. You can see the calf stretch. So the body should be in a line where you can go with this. And this is also stretch where you can go for the hamstring and calf. This is for complete hamstring and calf. This is a quadricep stretch in standing, where you hold one leg and pulling it back. Then again in the sitting, where you stretch for this is for the trunk rotators. Okay. Then again to the back. As I told you, in sitting, where you can bend down and touch your feet. I can show you. Okay, where you can take the leg in a figure of 4 manner, where you can stretch by holding the other waist. This will be your IT and piriformis, or else you can bend forward, okay, or else you can rotate to sideways. So these are simple stretches where you can perform on your bone. This helps a lot in order to perform your work, in order to perform your workplace. So these are the commonest stretches. So I just want to share a real life success story of our patient. This is the history of the patient. She's a 21 years old male patient, where she has a traumatic ACL injury due to a twisted knee. So she was dancing in her Diri's Barat, so where her knee got twisted. So she underwent MRI. There it shows there is an ACL ligament tear. So she has undergone. She didn't go for the MRI as soon as she has a twisted knee. So she has continued like that for 1 week. Afterwards, she has a frequent falls that ended up and landed up in a PCL and other collateral ligaments and meniscal tear also, where she subsequently underwent ACL reconstruction with an implant, which was complicated with a TB form. She has got an infection after the surgery. So they have done arthroscopic debridement was performed to address the infection, followed by the implant removal and to control the infection. So post-operatively, she developed the flexor-flexural deformity. That means her knee will be in a flex and there will be extensor lag. She can't extend her leg completely. She can't extend her knee completely. There is almost 50 to 20 degrees of extensor lag, that indicating the significant loss of the knee range of motion and the quadriceps weakness. So she has been undergoing the long-term rehabilitation for over a year, focusing on the range of motion, strengthening and functional recovery to address the persistent complication. So if you believe it or not, she has undergone almost 3 surgeries. And from last year, she is continuing her physical activity only to walk at least. So this was the actual scenario of the patient, where she was on a stretcher. Then again, she came to start walk with the walker support, again with the cane. Now she started walking like without support, but with a short cadence and everything. So she has reached to this level. We hope she may reach her goal and she may reach her rehabilitation program for the normal walking, to be independent in her day-to-day living activities. Then comes a closing thought. As I already told, exercise is a cornerstone of a healthy and vibrant life, shaping not only the individual well-being, but also the health of the future of the generations. So as I already mentioned in the first slide itself, at Azra hospitals, Azra means everybody knows it's everlasting. So we emphasize an individual's well-being. Our vision is rooted in fostering enduring vitality and empowering the community's embrace fitness as a lifelong habit. So by integrating the exercise into daily routines, we can build a legacy of the health resilience and joys that last for the generations. So, as everybody, we know as a everlasting, and we spread the health, our future healthful generation. Even by emphasizing the individual's well-being, you can spread the healthier, happy life to your communities, to your society, and your future generations. And this each and every single step that you take today, that helps in reducing your diseases in a later life. I hope everybody understands the importance of the exercise. So with this, I'm concluding my topic. So it is a lifelong journey. Start today, no matter your fitness level, witness the transformative power it holds you. Okay. Then comes the final quote: the fitness is not about the being better than the someone else. It's about being better than you. So it's a Khloe Kardashian. So with this, I'm ending up my session. Thank you so much.